Are we on? Okay, great. So thank you all for coming. We got a 4-session class this time, and it's going to be something new and different in terms of the things that we've learned together before. And I'm very excited to share it with you. I actually devoted 3 years of my life to thinking about Jewish environmental ethics, to thinking about the environmental crisis, not from a technical scientific perspective, but from a moral and ethical perspective, and trying to explore and articulate what a uniquely Jewish perspective on those questions and issues would be, because no one had so much articulated one before. So I could talk lots about this stuff, but we've got 4 sessions, and I want to start at the beginning, and we'll see where we go on a number of levels. What I've learned is that the environmental crisis is not a technical problem that needs technical fixes. It's essentially a question of values, meaning how do we see our place in the world? Do we value other species? Do we value them only as potentially useful to us in some way? Do we see them as having some kind of inherent value? How do we understand how resources should be distributed equitably? Is that a value of ours or not? And on some cases, the Torah has a lot of specific things to say. It actually talks directly about the extinction of species, about not polluting resources that belong to or are depended upon by other people, about not wasting or needlessly destroying anything, the limitations of private property rights in deference to the public common good, the equitable distribution of resources and what that looks like. And that being said, like I said, I think really underlying a lot of these are these very, very basic questions of how we see our place in the world. Hey, good morning, welcome. Oh, we lost Stephanie, I just realized. She came in, she'll come back, I'm sure. So, the place to start with all these questions is the Torah's creation story. That's really where these fundamental ideas come in. And what I want to do before we even dive in first is think about how creation narratives function in cultures and societies. Take a step back, if we will, from the story to think about it in the big picture. Because the truth is, creation narratives tell us a lot about who we are. I just made up these questions. I pointed them, I put them on the board, so I'll point to them like they are the question. Who are we? Why are we here? What is my place in the world? What is my connection, if any, right, to the people and creatures and things around me? These are fundamental questions that almost every culture has a story that answers. Now, what is our modern contemporary culture's creation myth? The Big Bang. What does the Big Bang say? Right? Dust, gas, we don't know where they came from, but they were there. Right? Collided somehow over eons and eons and eons. Here we are. What does that story tell us about who we are?
Well, in the sense, it tells us that we're somewhat creative. I don't know if we're creative enough to have maintained that. But it also tells us that we have more in our environment, we're more aware of what we can use.
The Big Bang tells you that. How?
How does it tell?
How do you get that from the fact that the universe was formed by gas and dust that collided? I don't think it tells us much. That would be my take. I would say that as creation stories go, our dominant story in secular culture is pretty poor, right? What it basically tells us is that the world is a big accident. It's a fortuitous accident, but it's essentially an accident without purpose or reason or guidance. And it doesn't really give us a lot to work with in terms of a self-understanding of who we are, why we're here, or what kind of a relationship we should have with the world around us. And so when we talk about the environmental crisis and the crisis of values that underlies it,
we have to even look deeper and see that we are starved for that kind of very fundamental knowledge and information. The blessing that we have is that our Torah provides us with that kind of a story. It's not a science story. It's not a history story. It's not competing with the Big Bang in terms of how many eons did it take for us to get from X to Y. It's a story that tries to answer the questions: who are we? Why are we here? What is our place in the world? And what is our connection to the creatures and the places around us? And it has a lot to say, a lot of wonderful things to say about that. And that's the kinds of questions that I'm hoping we can open the text today and start to look for. So here's your text. Does everyone have one? Let's pass them around.
Well, I'm not gonna do that.
have one?
It's so heavy.
Thank you.
There's another one.
So, just to back up for a minute, how many creation stories does the Torah have? Two. You're also knowledgeable, okay? One is much more well known than the other, but in fact there's two, which is a fascinating thing in and of itself. It's so classically Jewish, isn't it? You got your version, I got my version. I don't know if they really go together. You're right, I'm right. Right? That's the way it is. We have two different stories, and it's fascinating. So what I want to do, and we're not going to get through it all today, needless to say, is to take a really close look at the first story and a really close look at the second story. And then we're going to take a step back and say, in which ways are they similar, in which ways are they different, and what's kind of the take-home message from each of them and from the two of them put together. Okay? So what I'm going to ask you to do, you know I love to do this, is pair up with somebody so I don't just start talking. And let's spend a few minutes just together. Actually read out loud the first creation story. So everyone's got it fresh in her mind.
We do. Can we go back one further and just know the names?
Oh, thank you. Please do. Go ahead.
Carol Lilienthal.
Ann Peskin.
Audrey Schechter.
Thank you. I won't remember.
Okay.
So we make sure we're on the same page.
Is everyone 18? Is this what we're going
Okay,
again
so it's
together?
going to start, this is literally where the Torah begins. We're going to start with chapter 1, verse 1.
At least the verse, yeah. I'm glad you guys picked that up.
Look within the
Yeah,
neighborhood.
all right, it's going this way. Okay, yes.
Yes,
It's
and
a mixed up.
I'm not used to that.
Torah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not
It's a
used
very
to that.
mixed up Torah.
actually, it's, is it Gunther
Yeah,
Cloud?
it says begin.
Yeah,
Gunther
Page
Cloud,
is
yeah.
You have to go further back.
Okay,
It's
so
very
it starts on
beautiful.
page 18 of these Chumashim.
Spell it backwards.
I want you to read it out loud to each other. Read out loud, take a few minutes. It's funny, it's split into chapters, but in my opinion, the first creation narrative actually ends at chapter 2, verse 3. So let's read
So
through
it goes
chapter
all
2.
the way
Read
through
through
one.
chapter 2, verse 3.
This is a really
It's a
weird.
weird
It doesn't have the chapter and the verses.
It just has the verse, his Genesis 1, but where would you find?
By the time it's like
Genesis 2 is on the next
Okay, so
page.
this is commentary, so you can skip over this because we're going to do our own commentary. So yeah, this is it. So this is still chapter 1. Oh, so here's chapter 2 because you start with 1 again. Yeah, and they don't even tell you the chapter there.
No,
No,
but I
it's
think
really, oh, because it shows you here that it's chapter 2 also, yeah. The good news is they stopped right where we want to stop. So you're going to read through there.
So when God
Years, the void and dark with darkness on the surface.